Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really significant issue that's been making waves.
Hmm.
The reported halt of China's rare earth mineral exports to the United States.
Right. Big news, potentially.
Yeah, exactly. And look, if you're someone who likes to stay informed but maybe doesn't want to get totally lost in the weeds, that's what we're here for. We'll be using a transcript from a Hokiquat TV YouTube video as our main source today,
Okay.
just to try and understand the core of this, economic, geopolitical development and what it might really mean for the U.S.
Especially areas like tech and defense, I imagine.
Precisely. Technology, defense. Those seem key. So let's just dive right in.
Let's do it. So according to this Hakkakwat TV report, China has apparently stopped supplying these really crucial rare earth minerals.
Stopped completely.
That's the claim.
Yeah.
To the U.S. And it's framed as a direct response, retaliation for the recent increase in American tariffs.
Okay, so a direct tit-for-tat kind of move, according to the source.
Yeah, and the report uses pretty strong language.
Yeah.
It states, and I'll share a bit of the original Hindi they used, I know, Yekaleno.
Okay, what does that translate to, roughly?
Well, it really conveys the idea of a very severe blow, like breaking the back, essentially.
Well, no, breaking the back, that's intense.
It is, and aimed, the source says, not just at Donald Trump, but the entire United States. It
Yeah.
definitely paints a picture of a potentially, crippling action.
Okay, crippling action, breaking the back. That's pretty dramatic language. The source then gets quite specific, doesn't it, about which U.S. industries it thinks will feel this the most.
It does.
It highlights defense, mentioning impacts on tank, right?
Right, tanks, yeah. Along with Conrad generally Kilimpo ships, missile programs, radar systems.
That's a broad sweep. I mean, that covers a lot of national security areas.
It is indeed a wide range. And it's worth considering, rare earth minerals is kind of a catch-all term.
Right, it's not just one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Specific elements within that group, like neodymium and dysprosium, they're absolutely essential for the incredibly powerful permanent magnets you find in high-performance motors.
Okay.
And those motors are used in, certain advanced weaponry and vehicle systems. So while the impact probably wouldn't be uniform across all defense products,
Sure.
there are certainly critical applications that could be at stake here, based on this report.
That's a really important distinction, yeah. Breaking down what rare earth minerals actually means in practice. The report doesn't stop at defense, though.
No.
It also points to the electronics sector, suggesting potential trouble for, let's see,
Everyday stuff, basically.
yeah. And then focusing on electric vehicles, which is huge right now.
Mm-hmm.
It specifically calls out, like Teslas do their cars, and especially their batteries, as being really reliant on these materials.
Right. And specifically, when we talk about Tesla's cars and other EVs, certain rare earth elements, they play a key role in the efficiency
Ah.
and the power density of the permanent magnets used in their electric motors.
Yeah.
That's a big part of what makes them perform so well.
Got it. So performance could suffer, or production maybe?
Potentially, yes.
And the impact apparently extends even beyond just transportation. The source also flags green energy.
Yeah, wind turbines and
Well-
solar panels, they might be affected too.
And then it loops back to the military again, highlighting Haikalatak and Nakalio and Hagale.
Right.
It
Yeah.
really does seem, according to the source, that these minerals are just fundamental building blocks for a huge array of really crucial technologies.
Absolutely. The report itself really underscores the significance. It states, and again, I'll quote a bit for context, Eishmitava Shabayan. Sep kan fon pon kon kod morbida kon. Eishimia kon babin kon. Mamor. It's Jimmy Tevik, Asian thumb kon Eishmia glassic mentioning.
Okay.
And the gist of that is,
Essentially, from your phone to your car, all your other things, ships, navigation, it's used in basically everything technological.
wow.
It really brings home just how deeply ingrained these materials are in, our modern world, both everyday devices and, critical defense systems.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting geopolitically. The transcript suggests that the U.S. might have known this was a possibility,
Right.
that China might take this kind of action.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It even mentions a claim, again, this is from the source that Donald Trump, maybe anticipating this, actually looked into securing mineral supplies from Ukraine.
From Ukraine.
Huh. That adds a whole new layer to the chess game, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
So the source implies the U.S. is now, what, actively scrambling for other sources.
That's the suggestion. Looking worldwide for alternatives,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess suggests they acknowledge the potential disruption if China really has turned off the tap.
Well, yeah, it really highlights the risks, doesn't it? Relying so heavily on one single nation for materials this vital.
What happens when that one tap gets turned off?
Exactly.
And that reliance, according to this report, is considerable.
How much are we talking?
It claims China provides a massive 70% of the rare earth minerals used by the U.S.
Wow, 70%? That's huge.
Yeah. And it throws out some numbers on reserves, too, mentioning China's got like 44 million tons.
Compared to.
Much smaller amounts in places like Vietnam, Brazil, Russia, India. Even the U.S. itself has reserves, but apparently much smaller. But it's not just about what's in the ground, is it? I mean, the report makes another point. What makes China so dominant here? You've hit on a really crucial point there. The source emphasizes that China's dominance isn't just about having large reserves of the raw stuff.
Okay.
It's their massive lead in the really complex processes of mining, separating, and then refining these individual rare earth elements into usable forms.
The processing.
Yes, the processing is key. Even if the U.S. or other countries, ramped up their mining efforts significantly,
Right.
they might still face huge hurdles in actually developing the necessary infrastructure and, frankly, the technical expertise to process these materials efficiently and cost-effectively.
So it's like having loads of crude oil but no refineries almost.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. The refining capability is critical.
Okay, so if this export halt is real, as the source claims, what are the specific consequences they anticipate? It mentioned something pretty stark about F-35 jets.
Yeah, potential standstill, halting production of F-35s and missiles.
Yeah.
That would obviously be a really significant national security concern.
Huge.
Indeed. And the report also foresees a substantial impact on major U.S. tech companies. Not just Tesla.
Who else?
It names giants like Apple, NVIDIA, Intel, suggesting that disruptions to their supply chains and maybe increases in their production costs could seriously affect their bottom line.
Yeah.
And potentially the prices, consumers end up paying.
Right. That kind of ripple effect across such key players in the economy. Well, that could have broader implications, you definitely feel.
Absolutely.
Now, the idea of the U.S. looking for alternative suppliers, that makes perfect sense. But the source seems pretty pessimistic about how easy that would be.
Yeah, it paints a rather challenging picture. It suggests there aren't really readily available alternatives who can just step in and match China's sheer scale of production.
Trust us?
And the cost effectiveness, exactly. It even uses the example of like iPhone manufacturing.
Yeah.
How the whole ecosystem in China is just incredibly difficult to replicate quickly somewhere else. And what's particularly interesting to consider is that the report also points to potentially, let's say, strained relationships between the U.S. and some of the other nations that might be alternative sources.
Yeah.
It mentions India and Vietnam specifically, which adds another layer of complexity, right, to finding quick replacements.
Yeah, political hurdles on top of the technical ones.
Exactly. Plus, the very nature of extracting and refining rare earths, it's time-consuming. It requires huge investments, specialized knowledge. It's not something you can just, ramp up overnight.
Right, not flipping a switch.
Not at all.
The source definitely offers a clear perspective on why this allegedly happened now. It seems to place the blame squarely on what it calls the inconsistency of Trump's tariff policies, portraying those tariffs as the trigger that prompted China's move.
So, a direct cause and effect, according to this source. Trade tensions leading to resource control